Thank you very much. It's great to be here today. Do we have any makers in the room? I guess that's a stupid question, right? Fantastic. Well, here what I want to do today is bring you up to date on what NASA is doing on our journey to Mars. And there's a lot of opportunity to get engaged here. I also want to tell you about some of those opportunities, and I'll address them as we go through. But before I get started, what I want to do is encourage you to come visit us over at the NASA booth. It's in the Maker Pavilion. I'm sure you know where that is. I also want to encourage you to go to the website on NASA's homepage called NASA Solve. It's a one-stop shopping place for how to get involved with NASA. And in the many years I've worked with NASA, I've always wanted to get involved, and now we're trying to make that easy for you, and I'm going to show you some of them today about how you can get involved. So I'm the chief technologist at NASA. I'm actually a temporary position. I think it's great that NASA brings people in from the outside to bring in fresh ideas and so forth. So I've just started. My day job is a professor at MIT up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You might have heard about it. But now I'm 2 years at NASA, and I'm like a kid in a candy store. It's a fantastic experience. So my job as chief technologist is to really take the big view and try to help put the pieces together, and in particular on this big mission, our journey to Mars. So let's get started. First have to find the I have to figure out how to change the slides. Someone help me change the slides?
Oh, you got the wrong one.
Oh.
You want this one?
Thank you. Okay, we have a solution. Oop. So I'll start with NASA's vision. It's really to explore and to discover for the benefit of all humankind. So why is Mars sort of our ultimate destination? That's a good question. Well, we've been to all the planets, and we've been to most of the moons with our robotic scientific spacecraft, and we've looked at them with our telescopes, and for many of them, we've done both. And really, what we find is that Mars is the most welcoming of all the destinations from the human perspective. It looks like Earth. It looks the closest to Earth, and it's not that far away, relatively. And when I say relatively, let me give some perspective here. The moon is about 250,000 miles away. And Mars is just a hop, skip, and a jump from there. It's about 400, it depends on the time of year, but it's about 440 million miles away. So that's not just a small step beyond the moon. That's a big step. So how do we get to Mars? Well, that's a good question. One thing we do know is it's not easy. Just like I said, it's a long ways away in many dimensions. We want to go to Mars using all the tools we have available, because if we don't, it's going to be a difficult task. And we do difficult tasks because those are the challenging ones. Those are the ones that stretch us. Those are exciting. In aerospace, whether it's aeronautics or space flight, in essence, you're defying gravity. It's not an easy business. So we want to go to Mars because it's difficult, it's exciting, and when we achieve success along the way, it's very rewarding. So we've seen the other planets, but I don't want to start an argument here. We haven't been to Pluto. When I was born, Pluto was a planet. It's not technically a planet now. So hopefully I'm not going to, and I don't want to enter a debate right now. We haven't been to Pluto yet. We've looked at it through telescopes. It's very hard to resolve. It's so far away, but I want to give you good news. Next summer, 2015, the New Horizons spacecraft, has anyone heard of New Horizons? All right, good. Is going to fly by Pluto and is going to reveal so much about that non-planet that it's going to be very exciting. I mean, right now, just fuzzy dots on a screen is what we know about it, but we have learned a lot more over the years. When I was growing up, it had one moon. It now has many moons. We're learning more and more about Pluto. But next summer, our knowledge of Pluto is going to increase tremendously, and that's going to be very exciting. So when we go to Mars, we need to use all the tools available. And let me, sort of the biggest tools here, and they're listed, commercial companies. They're a key part of how we're going to get to Mars. There's the science missions, and I'm going to talk about those. There's the human journey. There's the trip. And near and dear to my heart as chief technologist, there's the technology that we build along the way to let us do this. So let me show you how we plan to do this. On the bottom here, you sort of see a progression on the way to Mars. And today, in the International Space Station, we're working on the tools that allow us to get along the way. So on station, we are developing the technology, robotics technology, life support technology that will allow us to do this trip. We are also understanding better how long-duration weightlessness impacts the human body and learning how to mitigate that effect, because this is a long trip to Mars. It's not just far, it's long. So we call that phase Earth-reliant. So as you probably know, we call it Earth-reliant because we send rockets up with cargo in order to replenish the resources on station. We bring up food, we bring up water, we bring up experiments. So we really depend on Earth for running space station, and that's well known. If there's a problem on station, we can phone home to mission control. We get an instant answer. That's nice and convenient. If there's a medical emergency, we're hours from a hospital. It's actually surprising to think that we're up on orbit, but we're only hours away from a hospital. So as we develop these tools, we need to start breaking those ties to Earth, that reliance on Earth. So the way we want to do that is we want to exercise those tools in a more representative environment. And that brings in the proving ground, which is in cislunar space, which is really mean around and beyond the moon. This is farther than we've ever been before with humans. So out there, we can be in a more realistic environment. We're days away from coming home. We can work in more of an authentic environment that we would have on the way to Mars. And we can develop those tools so when we eventually get to Mars, we'll be ready, we'll know how to use those tools, and we'll be ready to work independent of Earth. So I want to hit on the themes of commercial, science, humans, and technology. And I want to start with the commercial side. I'd like to see a show of hands. How many heard the announcement last week about Launch America? Okay, some of you. Maybe you don't recognize the phrase, but last week NASA announced that 2 US companies were picked, SpaceX and Boeing, to develop US launch systems to launch US astronauts from US soil by 2017. So if you hadn't heard about it before, you heard it now. So I think that's a major step. It's an exciting step, but it's not the first step. NASA has been supporting commercial companies for a number of years now, and hopefully you know about these. For a handful of years now, there have been 2 companies that have been launching cargo to the International Space Station, SpaceX and Orbital Sciences. And that's an important step in the process as well. In fact, there's a launch this weekend. I think weather scrubbed it last night, but I think there's another attempt tomorrow morning, which is kind of tonight, at 1 a.m. SpaceX 4 is going to space station. Does anyone know what's on board?
3D printer.
3D printer, thank you very much. There's a plant in the audience, good. And going with, that's called Made in Space. Going with that is a challenge to those middle school students and high school students in the crowd to be the first or one of the first to actually print their idea in space. It's very exciting. So for those in the crowd, those middle school students and high school students, please go to NASA Solve and learn more about that. Be the first to get your idea made in space. So let me step back a moment. You know, this is very important, this commercial aspect to it, and NASA's working very hard to promote that. It provides a market. You know, bring it on, we will buy. That helps the commercial companies do what they do best. They make things. They bring efficiency into the system. They create jobs and they attract new business. This is an important element of that journey, a very important element. So let me move on to the robotic systems, the science missions. This is an artist's conception of all the things we've been doing on Mars in the past decade. There's a lot of things. You can see the various systems we've had on the ground. You can see the ones that have been in orbit and are on the way right now. And this doesn't even include all the stuff that we were doing back in the 60s through the 1990s and so forth. We're on Mars today, so this journey has already started. It's not something in the distant future. It has already started. It's happening now. So let me give you a few examples. You probably see Curiosity rover there, which was launched in 2011. It landed on Mars in August 2012. How many stayed up to watch that landing? Okay, that's good to see. We'll get back to that in a moment. It has been traveling around the base of Mount Sharp. As of a couple of weeks ago, it reached the flanks. So now instead of moving over, it's now heading up. Anyone a mountain climber in the room? Okay, we got one in the front row. Okay. So anyone who likes to go hiking and climb mountains knows that, you know, it's great to learn and see and enjoy the valleys. At some point, that trail turns from being horizontal to being almost vertical. And that's an exciting time. You know the rest of the road is tough, but you're going to see a lot of new things, and the view from the top is going to be tremendous. So that's the point that Curiosity is at right now. There's another mission called MAVEN. You can see it along the top, second from the right there. It was launched in 2013. I'm trying to remember, when's that supposed to arrive at Mars? Anyone know? No one? Someone? Okay. When do you think it's going to arrive at Mars? What's that? Yes, tomorrow. So, yeah, that's as now as you can get, I guess. So, and there's no weather cancellation of that arrival. It's going to arrive. So what I encourage you, if you're this is tremendous stuff, you should log in nasa.gov. You can follow along tomorrow about that arrival and see what's going on. So this is all doing very exciting science. In fact, it's coincidental, but in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a comet that's going to come by Mars. I think it's going to come by Mars closer to Mars than any comet has come by Earth in recorded history. So basically, these systems are there sitting in the front row, like you are right here, to a very extraordinary flyby of a comet. And that's going to be a tremendous event as well. And that's probably a couple weeks from now. So this is all great science we've been doing on Mars, but it has a dual use. We're also learning a lot more about Mars in advance of sending humans. So things like weather. We're learning a lot about the weather. We're learning a lot about the technology to navigate there. You know, you go out in the evening and you see a red dot in the sky and imagine that you're going to land some vehicle, pinpoint landing on that surface. We're doing that now. And so we're learning how to navigate, how to land. We're looking for resources we can use. Water is probably the most precious thing we can find, and we're finding, surprisingly, a lot of water on Mars. They've been scraping the surface. They see frost. Now, it's not nearly as much water as on Earth, but water is precious, and we're finding more than some thought would be there. And some of it could be pretty accessible. We're also learning about radiation. The Earth has magnetic fields which protect us from the sun's radiation and the galactic radiation. But Mars doesn't have nearly as strong a magnetic field, so we're kind of concerned about that. But they do have an atmosphere, just like Earth. It's a lot thinner. But on Curiosity rover, we're actually measuring the radiation at the surface. And it looks a lot more favorable than maybe some had originally thought. And that's good news as well. So these science missions are really setting the stage for the human journey. So the human journey, it's about making things. It's about making rockets. It starts with making rockets. Well, there's a big rocket being made right now. And what you see on the left are engineering drawings of two variants of the Space Launch System called SLS. On the left is a cargo module. It's a cargo version. On the right is the crew version. And these are rockets that are as big as the Saturn V. And with advances in technology since the 60s, we can make these rockets to actually carry more than the Saturn V. So these are big rockets. These are the things that take us out of low Earth orbit, take us beyond the moon, take us to Mars. So drawings are great. You know as a maker community that there's the drawing and then there's the reality. And sometimes they don't match. So let me show you what's actually happening with SLS. It passed a major milestone last month. It's called KDP-C. Being new at NASA, I'm still learning what these mean. But it's basically the switch from formulation to development. Basically, finishing the design and now building that design. And that's the phase we're in now. And I want to show you a few photos of pieces we are building here. So if you look at the top, that's the capsule. That's the Orion crew capsule. That's a photo. That's not an engineering drawing. There's an engineering model of that, hardware, that is being tested off the coast of San Diego over the past month to do water recovery exercises. And you ask, why water recovery? Well, this is going to return into the Earth's atmosphere and land in the water. So they want to figure out, make sure all those operations are right. The first flight version of this was rolled out at the Kennedy Space Center a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. And it's going to be put on top of a Delta IV Heavy launch vehicle. If you've never seen a launch, go see one. It'll change your life, I promise. It's a Delta IV Heavy launch vehicle. It's currently the largest in our fleet, and it's going to be the first flight of SLS-related hardware, the first flight of Orion, okay? That's in December. That's only 2.5 months away. So this is happening. Down in Louisiana, that center photo, those are cylinders. They're big cylinders, 33 feet in diameter. Those get stacked up in the largest assembly machine I've ever seen. It's 150 feet tall. You stack those up. That's the first stage. That's what contains the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen fuel that propels the first stage of SLS. It's a stir welding facility. Probably people in the room probably explain to me what stir welding is better than I can. But think of it as a world's giant 3D printer, perhaps. But it's an amazing facility. At the bottom is a shuttle main engine being test fired. We kept all the shuttle main engines. They are amazing machines. I'll get back to this in the maker community. You know that the theory of design, oh, it all looks great, and then you try to make it, and you know, there are some things that make reality and theory not quite match. But the performance of those engines is miraculous. They are as close to theory as you can get. So really, where the technology comes in here is producing them faster and producing them at lower cost. And that's really manufacturing technology. And additive manufacturing has a role to play in that. So let me now get to technology. And being a chief technologist, I thought it wasn't right for me to just put up one slide and show technology. So instead, I brought a movie for us to take a look at. So this was an announcement that President Obama made in 2010 that by the end of this, by in the 2030s, we are going to go to Mars and after that land. What did I say? In the 2030s, we will send humans to Mars, and after that, we will land on Mars. And that was in 2010, I believe, yes. So we've been going to Mars, as I said, since the 1960s with the Mariner flybys. We've been landing on Mars since the 1970s. Some of you remember that. We've been orbiting and roving on Mars since the 1990s. As I saw, it was great to see, a number of you remember the Curiosity landing, very exciting landing that happened in 2012. So now it's time to send humans. But there's a lot of challenges. These are just some of them. There are a lot of challenges, and the question is, how are we going to get around all those challenges? And it really takes technology. So today, NASA is developing those technologies. We have to develop technologies to navigate, to communicate, to land, to live, to work, to explore, and equally important, come home. So I'll give you some examples of these. We're developing laser technology for communication, laser communication. So right now we use radio. Laser can send a lot more volume of data. Think HD video from Mars' surface. That would be tremendous. We're building lighter rockets, lighter upper stages, so we can send more mass out to Mars. We're building more capable landing systems and advanced parachutes so we can land more mass on Mars. We got to bring a lot of stuff. And these are being tested today. We also have to work on robotics. Robotics help us to work more efficiently, more effectively, and also gets us to places that might be too dangerous to send a human. So really building that synergy. We need to protect ourselves from the environment. There's the cold, there's the solar radiation, the galactic radiation. We also need to recycle. Just like here on Earth, we really need to recycle on Mars. We've got to recycle our air. We need to recycle our water. We need to build power systems. You know, the Mars is much further away from the sun than the Earth. The sun is dimmer. We've got to figure out good ways to combinations of solar and other technologies in order to do that. And we have to use what's there. In situ resource utilization. We need that to build habitats. We need that to find the water we're going to drink. We need that to create air that we're going to breathe and so forth. All of this is being done today at NASA and also with commercial companies and with universities. But probably what's a little different now is we're engaging the broader community in this journey. And I'm going to get back to that note in a minute. I'll encourage you to go to NASA Solve. Again, this is reinforcement. Go to NASA Solve and find how you can get engaged in this. So I'd like to take a moment here and sort of change gears and talk to you about something that I think is fascinating about a technical aspect of these missions I find fascinating. But I'm going to sort of give you a quiz here and see. So if I could see the hands again that sat up in that August. Maybe you're on the West Coast and you didn't have to stay up. But in August 2012 to watch the Kennedy landing, okay. Some of you go to bed too early, that's clear. So let me ask you another question. How many of you have watched that video called 7 Minutes of Terror, which is the animation of watching that come in? Okay, good. How many of you saw it again? Yeah, it's one of those things you want to watch again and again. It's fascinating. And I encourage you, while you can't be there for the landing anymore, you can watch that video. And it's a description of that whole event and all the challenges. It's amazing how many things worked, and they all worked right, and it all happened. So here's the extra credit question. How many who watched that video saw that as it's streaking through the atmosphere, there's these little masses that got sort of shot out from or jettisoned from the spacecraft? Okay, we're winnowing down the crowd here. Oh, you did? Okay, great. What are those? Ballast. I've always called them ballast, but I've told they're called balance masses. Okay. So they're balance masses. What do? They probably balance the spacecraft. Well, actually, that's right. As we head out to Mars, we spin our spacecraft. It gives gyroscopic stabilization and all that, and it helps to be sort of a rotisserie so as the sun's light hits it, we sort of spread the heat out and so forth. But when you spin something, you want it to have it balanced. Tires on your car, the notoriously imbalanced washing machine. You don't want to have it there wobbling. So you put in masses to get it finely tuned and balanced. But then we get to above the Martian atmosphere and we jettison those. Why do we jettison those? Those are called the cruise balances. There's two 70-kilogram cruise balance masses that we throw overboard.
To reduce the impact.
Well, that's one of it. There's another. It's that if you're symmetric and you're in balance and you come into the atmosphere, you create a lot of drag. That's good. You got to slow down because you're going fast. But if you imbalance the spacecraft a little bit, it'll actually come in at a little bit of a tilt, and you'll produce a little bit of lift. And that lift is very important. They've been doing it since the command modules on Apollo were coming in. The lift helps you to steer and glide the vehicle as it comes in and is slowing down. And you might want to do that, well, you do want to do that because there's some location you want to land, and you want to make sure as you come in, you're going to get there. You also do it because the heat shield's heating up. You can maybe get a little bit of a bounce or a little bit of a rise and be able to reduce how quickly that heat is coming in so that you can handle it. Then after you're done coming in on the heat shield, just before they pop the chute, 6 little 25 kilogram masses pop out. Why do they do that? It's to rebalance the spacecraft. It's like, rebalance the spacecraft. And that's because once you get under the parachute, you want to make sure when you land, you're going to land balanced. You don't want to come down and land on one side of wheels or the other side of wheels. You want to come down straight. Okay. So if you've been doing the math, and some of you I'm sure have, that's 300 kilograms of balance mass. That's a lot at Mars. So the big question in your mind right now might be, why am I telling you all about this minutia about these spacecraft? Well, that's because today we're formally announcing the Mars Balance Mass Challenge. Now I think you're thinking I should have been taking notes, right? That's all right. We've got it all written down at that website, okay? So this Balance Mass Challenge, this is something you can also find through NASA Solve. You can also find it right at that website. I heard it went active about 5 minutes ago, if all our timing is right, and at NASA it always is. So we're offering a prize, $20,000 for the best idea of how would you use that balance mass, whether it's the cruise mass, the 2 75 kilogram ones, or the 6 25 kilograms. You're the maker community. We want to hear your ideas. We're interested. So we're opening this challenge today here at Maker Faire, New York. I can't think of a better place to do that. It's going to close on November 21st. This is a race, okay? If you're up to the challenge, it's a race. That's November 21st this year. And we're going to announce the winner and bring the check in mid-January. So we want to hear your ideas. How can we use those for things? We're still using them for balance, but are there other things that they can be used for? And we want to hear your ideas. So as you go through today and go through your design, I want to encourage you to do a number of things. Please come to our booth in the Maker Pavilion today. Please go to nasa.gov to see, as I've heard from someone in the audience, that the Maven is arriving tomorrow at Mars. Go track us on social media, and also go to NASA Solve, because this is not the only challenge we have out there. We have a number of challenges out there that we'd love to get your ideas and your involvement with. This is the era of really engaging the external community, and the maker community is a great one to interface with. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.